In this Helldivers 2 video, we're going to be fully breaking down each item that we got in the Control Group Warbond. So this is probably the most ambitious Warbond that we've gotten to date, so it's required a little bit more testing and a little bit more time because all these items do so many different things, so many different elements going on with each item that I didn't just want to like shorten it down and do a watered down version of what each item needed. So I spent the past 24 hours really diving in and playing with these things as much as possible to figure out all the various things they can do, and that's exactly what I want to present to you in this video so you can know all the tips and tricks, so to speak, of each item. But anyways, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over each item individually, and then at the end of each section, we're going to be giving each item a ranking. And then lastly, at the end of the video, I'm going to be giving an overall ranking / thought process on my recommendations for the Warbond and whether you should buy it or not. Anyways, let's talk about it. This first item we're going to be talking about is going to be the Warp Pack. This is by far the most impactful item in the game, so that's why I wanted to highlight it first, because I know that's the thing that most people are interested in. So basically, you're going to blink in different directions. So if you're moving left and you press the blink button or press the jump button that you would normally do with any of the other jump packs or hover pack, you're going to go in that direction. Just blink in that direction. Same thing forward, backwards, whatever you're doing, you're going to be able to go in that direction that you're moving. And then basically how it works is there is a purple dot that you're going to see glowing on the backpack. That means you're still in the safe mode. That means it's still got full charge and all that stuff, and it's going to be safe to warp. When you actually warp and you see yellow, that means it's a little bit unstable and you could break a limb, you could catch on fire, but you're going to definitely take some sort of damage in general. And then when it's red, that means you're probably going to die on the next warp, so you need to be careful because it's overheated and needs to cool down. It does cool down pretty quickly in like 15 seconds or so. It doesn't take that long to cool down, which is very nice. And then the cool thing is that it only takes about 5 seconds to become stable enough to warp. So basically, if you warp on purple and it goes down to yellow and you warp again, it's only going to take about 5 seconds for you to get back to a normal state. You can push it to 3 seconds, so you can basically be warping every 3 seconds or so, but it's a little bit risky, so you got to know what you're doing there. But realistically, you can be warping every 5 seconds, which is absolutely insane to be able to be moving at that level at any given time. So when you do actually warp too much and you overheat, it's going to blow you up and you're going to die, and it's going to actually destroy the backpack as well. Very similar to the railgun and other things like that in the game, where if you overheat it, it will blow up. So that's something you definitely want to avoid. And the cooldown is very, very lengthy on this, so you're going to have a long time to wait to get this back. So you want to try to avoid blowing this thing up if possible, because it's going to basically ruin your dive if you blow it up. One thing to keep in mind with this warp pack, and I'm pretty sure they're going to fix this, is that when you are crouched, the little globe thing on the back will obscure your vision when you're aiming down sight. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're in third person, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but if you're using like the anti-material rifle or something like that, like I was in this clip, you're going to clearly see that it is blocking my vision, which is annoying. The other thing too is that you can actually take off the backpack when you're mid-warp. So basically, if you time the drop backpack and the warp button, you can do that and fling your backpack forward. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but it's kind of funny to see your backpack just go sailing off and you stay in place. You can also do it to where you go forward without the backpack as well. So that's kind of a gimmicky thing, but that's something you can do. All right, so jumping into the cool things that you can do with the warp pack. Obviously, you're going to be able to zip around the map, fly through things and fly through enemies, but more specifically, what you can do with this is you can actually fly into the storage crate containers. So basically, if you see those little storage crate containers that you want to get into, you can fly into it and blow the door off and actually get in there and get whatever's in there. You can also warp through the buddy bunker. So if you're in a situation where you're solo and you're trying to super credit farm, for example, which I know a lot of you like to do, you can actually warp into the bunker and get all the credits and then warp back out. It actually makes it a little bit more efficient for that, so you don't have to be so reliant on people being nearby and calling for, I got a bunker near me and stuff like that. So that's actually really nice. You're also able to warp through walls and like the city biomes and whatnot, so no longer do you need to have an ultimatum or find an opening. You can just warp right through the wall. You can also warp through corners of buildings. You can warp through rocks. You can warp into rocks if you become a little unlucky, or if you do that by design, you can warp into some rocks. But typically what will happen when you're actually going up against a structure that you can't go through, you're going to just go up or just not go anywhere at all. So that's pretty cool if you want to use it as a tactical thing to blink backwards on top of a building, or blink onto a building and then blink down or something like that. So that's some pretty cool things you can do with the overall movement, is just go through pretty much anything, including enemies, buildings, walls, whatever. There's so many things that you can blink through within the game. Another cool thing you can do is you can actually close bug holes with the blink. Sometimes it will kill you depending on the situation that's going on when you blink into the area, but you can actually close the bug holes, which is pretty cool. With that same frame of mind, you can actually use the blink to kill enemies. enemies. This actually deals 1000 damage at AP4, so it's going to do some heavy damage to a lot of enemies on the field. So if you blink and you time it well, you're going to blink on top of things and it will kill a large group of enemies. It's actually pretty cool. You will die if you land on spear enemies because they will blow up and kill you. You will also die if you land on elites like chargers or hulks. You will die instantly from the impact, so that's something to keep in mind. But generally speaking, if you're landing on cannon fodder, you're going to be able to kill them and blink out or whatever you want to do, which is pretty cool. An advanced thing they can do with the warp pack is you can actually blink while diving or prone. So if you have a situation where you dive, hit the ground, and are prone for a second, shoot a couple shots, you can actually turn around, start moving in that direction by crawling, blink, and then you'll be on your feet full sprint. It's actually a pretty athletic way to play. It's get you out of a lot of sticky situations, which is very, very nice. And I like the overall mobility that it creates by diving and then into a sprint type thing. Or if you're diving, you'll dive and land, and then you can immediately blink again, and then you can actually start sprinting off in a different direction. So that's pretty cool overall. Another advanced tip is if you know you're going to want to multi-blink, you can go ahead and pre-stim. This works especially well when you're using the medkit armor passive or the experimental infusion. But if you heal and then you blink twice, you're actually going to recover from any damage you take from limb damage or anything like that. You obviously need to dive if you're catch on fire or anything like that, so you need to anticipate that, but that really only happens if you blink into red. Another advanced tip is that if you use charging weapons like the railgun, the quasar, the new epoch launcher, or anything like that, and you blink mid-charge, you can actually continue that action wherever you go. So if you are having a bile titan shooting at you and you want to sidestep so that way you can avoid their spit, you can actually sidestep and still continue to charge a weapon. This has dramatically changed the way something like the quasar works and makes it a little bit better overall, because you're actually able to avoid that damage instead of having to sit there and take it, which is extremely nice. This action does not work as well for reload. What I've noticed is that if I'm reloading while I'm blinking, it actually ends up kind of canceling the reload and doing some weird things. When you're having to chamber bolt the eruptor, it will actually finish that action if you do blink, which is actually a really nice way to play the eruptor as well. If you want to have more fast mobility and if you don't want to wait for it to fully cock back in, you can actually just sidestep, and it's actually very nice overall. This will also work with weapons that have persistent fire, the laser cannon, the scythe, the torture, crisper, whatever you want. It's going to be able to keep shooting while you're warping in any direction. And lastly, this works with stratagems as well. If you program the stratagem and you want to continue to throw it after you warp, you can warp to the side and then throw it in. You don't have to recode in the stratagem as well. To get into my final thoughts on my overall grade for the warp pack, this thing is literally insane. It can do so much. You can traverse the map so much easier. You're just flying around the map, being able to blink anywhere you want every 5 seconds. It makes just generally running across the map very nice. If you need to reposition because you got enemies in your face or you want to dodge their attacks, very, very nice as well to be able to do that. And then there's no front that this thing is not great on. Against the Illuminate, you're going to be able to fly around. You're going to be able to fly into a pack of Voteless and kill a few of them and then warp out if you want. You can warp out of the Harvester Beams. It's very nice. If you want to avoid Hulks or just go through the Hulks and actually hit their little vent on the backside, very, very nice for that. If you want to go through a charger, you can do that and get on the other side and start hitting its little butt area with whatever you want. It's also very effective there. But overall, this is an elite stratagem in the game. Easily the best item in this entire Warbond. It's an immediate S tier for me because it's got so much utility. It's got such a fun factor. The mobility is insane. The opportunities are insane. The potential for this thing is insane. And I cannot say insane more than that. It's a really good item. You definitely need to get it for that. Next up is the VG70 variable. And the overarching thought with this weapon is that it is kind of like an AR, but not really. It has 3 different firing modes and multiple different RPMs. Essentially, this has a ton of different features, and it's quite interesting when you dive into it. But diving into the stats, the damage is 85, the capacity is 49, the fire rate is 550, the horizontal recoil is 5, the vertical recoil is 9, the ergonomics are 22, the backup magazines are 7, and the reload time is 4 seconds. Some of the hidden stats for the weapon are that the durable is 20 and the stagger force is 10, so it's not a stagger machine or anything like that. And the durable is passable. It's nothing crazy or anything like that. There's no tactical reload for this weapon. You actually do not get a benefit for reloading this when it has ammo in it like other weapons, which is kind of annoying, but that's kind of what it is. When you run an armor passive like Siege Ready, this does give you a 30% increase to your reload speed, which drops it to 2.8 seconds. And also there are no weapon customization options outside of scopes, which is pretty disappointing, but it is what it is. All right, so let's talk about these 3 different firing modes because they are super interesting when you kind of break them down into their base parts. parts. So the first one is auto. This is really simple. It's affected by the 3 RPMs that you see. We have 300, 550, and 750. The accuracy and the recoil pattern for the variable in this auto mode is very accurate. It's not going to really go side to side that much or even up at all. It will go up slightly in the third person mode, but when you're in first person, it literally doesn't move. It's going to be a very accurate weapon when you're shooting it in this mode. This mode is primarily good for chaff clearing. It's going to be actually one of the best light pin chaff clearing weapons in the game, in my opinion. It's very good at just going through bugs really easily, very good at going through voteless. It will do good damage against overseers. It's decent on the bot side in this mode, but honestly, I don't really like this particular mode against the bots. But overall, against the bugs and the Illuminate, it's going to be very good for dealing with those other enemies. It's not great at dealing with hive guards and things like that, or dealing with some of the flesh mobs. It can do damage to the flesh mobs, but it's not great in this particular mode against the flesh mobs. So really what this thing is really good at is going to be those horde clearing situations with the chaff. This next firing mode is going to be the volley fire mode, which is the most interesting in my opinion of the 3. And basically what this does is it converts 7 shots into a slug round type deal. And this is going to increase the damage from 85 damage per shot to 595 damage per shot. And you get 7 total shots now with this particular mode. It's highly accurate with very little bullet spread if you pace your shots. If you go full Rambo and shoot this thing like crazy, it's going to go all over the place. So you don't want to do that. Basically what you want to do is you want to shoot, let it recenter or get close to recentering before you take your next shot. And that does take a minute for it to reload or get back to its center, but overall it is worth it because it is highly accurate when you actually do. This mode is very effective for enemies that have clear weak points. You think something like the Devastators, you shoot them in the face, it's going to one-shot them immediately. With the accuracy of this thing, it's going to be very effective at taking out multiple Devastators at once. Against the Overseers, it's going to take about 1 to 2 shots, but it's going to kill them pretty quickly. Against the Brood Commanders, it's very much the same. And overall, it's very good against the flesh mobs in this particular mode, a little bit more so in my opinion than the auto mode, because you can actually get 7 quick shots off and then reload and then get 7 more quick shots off. So you're going to be able to kill the flesh mobs a little faster. But overall, this is a weak point hitting machine. You're going to absolutely delete enemies that have clear weak points like the Devastators and things like the Overseers and things like that. Last up is another interesting mode, which is the total mode. So basically this fires all remaining shots. So it can be up to 49 shots or as little as 1 shot. It just depends on how many you have left, but you can switch to this mode and then fire all of your shots at once. If you fire all 49 shots, you can deal up to 4,165 damage per shot, which is really powerful. This is strong enough to deal with Hulk vents in 1 shot and various things like that, but we're going to get to that in a moment. There's some diminishing return to this, obviously, because you are using a light pen weapon and the durable areas are not going to change because of that. But overall though, you're going to be able to hit a target with a really strong precision shot, which is actually quite powerful overall. The biggest side effect of firing all 49 shots is that you will be ragdolled. This actually affects any shot over half the magazine. So if you have 23 bullets or less, you will not be ragdolled, but if you have 24 bullets or more, you will be ragdolled. So that's something to keep in mind there. Now you can't be ragdolled if you're prone. So if you're laying on the ground, even if you shoot with the 49 shots, you will not be ragdolled. So that's something to keep in mind there. You can be ragdolled in the air. So if you are in the air and you shoot this while you're on a jump pack or a hover pack, you will be ragdolled out of the air. So that's something to keep in mind there. I did mention that you can actually one-shot Hulks to the vents, which is actually a really powerful thing. So if you warp pack behind a Hulk and you shoot it with the total round, you're going to be able to one-shot it. It's very nice. This does not work on other vents like turret towers and things like that because of the penetration level of the weapon, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. The total mode is going to also be able to destroy chargers. You can two-shot them in the butt area, whether you use stun grenades or get behind them in general. You can two-shot them to the butt, which is very nice. Overall though, the total mode is going to chew through ammo very fast because you got to think you're using 7 total shots in general, because that's typically how much you have unless you're running siege ready. So that's just things to keep in mind when you are using this thing. So I'm going to keep my final thoughts simple here. The weapon is pretty gimmicky. If you like gimmicky weapons that have multiple fire modes similar to the Halt, you're probably going to like this. I like the Halt quite a bit, swapping between the stun rounds and the flechette rounds, and this weapon is very much the same. If you enjoy the thrill of swapping between all 3 modes, you're gonna like this weapon. It's a good challenge weapon overall too, but it's got each mode has very specific use cases, but the weapon as a whole kind of operates the same. But the weapon's gimmicky. If you like that, cool, you're gonna love this weapon. But for me personally, I don't find myself using it a lot unless I just need a really good chaff clearing thing for the auto mode. That's where I feel like it's the best, and the volley mode is pretty cool overall. But anyways, I'm gonna give this weapon a B tier. The next thing we're gonna speak about is the PLAS-45 Epoch. So to address the elephant in the room before I get into the stats for this weapon, It is bugged. The devs have confirmed this in Discord. They're working on a fix for it, but it is bugged. The aiming is bugged more specifically, and aka the spread. So when you shoot this thing, and I don't really know exactly how to recreate this because I've thought it was one thing and it wasn't another. It's just confusing, but when you shoot this thing, sometimes it will just shoot off in the other direction. So if you'll see in the example on the screen right now, I'm trying to shoot this illegal broadcast and it keeps going off to the left or the right or hitting a tree or something like that. And I'm like, I'm clearly aiming right here. There's some other examples playing on screen right now too, but it just goes off in random directions sometimes. So the aiming is clearly bugged. The devs are going to work on it. So I'm going to try to look at the weapon for what it can do in its current state and not focus so much on the aiming issues. So that's kind of where I'm going with this review of this particular weapon. So to talk about the stats, basically this is a charge up mechanic for a plasma weapon. Think something like the Quasar, think something like the railgun. It kind of operates within that realm. So the uncharged stats are that the projectile is going to deal 400 projectile damage with 200 durable damage. The demo force is 10 and it is AP4. The explosion damage for this weapon uncharged is going to be 400 and the durable is going to be 400. It's going to be AP4 and the radius is going to be 3 and the inner radius is going to be 2.3 meters. Focusing in on the max charge portion of this weapon because that's really what we care about. The projectile damage at max charge is going to be 800 and 400 durable and AP5 and it's going to have the same demo force of 10. The charged explosion damage is going to be 800 damage and 800 durable damage. The penetration is going to be AP5 and the radius is going to increase to 4 meters and the inner radius is going to be 3 meters. So really what we're looking to do is charge this weapon up and hit enemies with this max charge because that's by far where it's the strongest. Now when you're charging this thing up, you're going to hear a distinct sound. Now unlike the railgun, it's going to give you a sound prompt and you need to shoot it then, and you're going to hear it right here. Once you hear this sound prompt, you're going to need to fire it immediately. Otherwise, the weapon will explode, destroying the weapon and killing you. So that's something you need to keep in mind there. And the cooldown time for this is a very long time. So you'd want to try not to do that. It's definitely a high skill weapon for that reason. The demo force is only 10, which is a bit of a head scratcher and something I imagine they're going to address later because at this particular demolition force, it can't destroy bug holes, but it can technically destroy fabricators from the outside in 2 shots, which is a little weird, but it can do that. But it can't destroy pretty much any of the objectives. Even illegal broadcast, it can't destroy them either. So some other basic stats for this weapon is that you get 3 total shots in a magazine before you need to reload, and it is a crouched reload. So basically, you have to go prone to reload this thing, which is very similar to things like the recoilless and things of that nature. You get 4 total shells in reserve without siege ready, and with siege ready, you get 5 total backup shells, which is going to have 3 shots per shell. So you can do the math there. All right. So with all that in mind, again, the main thing that we're focusing on is utilizing and maximizing the potential of that maximum charge. We want to be hitting that as much as possible. This is going to be very good for general horde clearing. If you shoot this into a pack of bugs, it's going to kill a lot of them very quickly, which is nice. It's also the same thing on the bot front and the Illuminate front. It's going to be able to horde clear very well. Where it's kind of weird is against the elite units because it can kill hulks depending on where you hit them. If you hit them in the vent, you can one-shot them. From the front, it's not going to kill them as consistently. Where I've killed them more often is aiming toward the top of their head as opposed to the eye, and it seems to overpen to the vent, which is the fastest way to kill them. And against chargers, is going to actually kill them pretty quickly as well. If you shoot the little butt, it's going to kill them quickly. It's going to be able to take off plating if you hit them on the arm or the leg or anything like that, which is also an effective strategy. I would not use this thing that much against factory striders. It's going to take way more shots than you want it to. They're hard to kind of predict. Even shooting the little top gun took more than 1 shot, so I would not use this against factory striders. Harvesters is going to 2-shot. Most of the time, it will sometimes 1-shot if you hit the little joint area, but if you're hitting right on the face, it's going to 2-shot. On Bio Titans, it's actually going to kill them in 3 shots, which is pretty good. So if you hit them in the face, if they open their mouth and you hit them in the mouth, they're going to die in 2. But if you hit them in the forehead or just a little face area, they're going to die in 3 most of the time. So it's decently effective against the Bio Titans, but really where this weapon kind of lies, if you want to say it, is real in that mid-range area. It's going to do well at the chaff clearing. It's going to do decently well against hulks, chargers, harvesters, and even flesh mobs to a degree. So my final thoughts for the weapon are that this weapon is sitting in a weird spot. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's not a true anti-tank weapon, and it's not really a true horde clear weapon. It's kind of somewhere in between. I will say that it works well with the war pack again because you can charge it and move, which is pretty cool. It does need a demo force increase badly, so that way we can at least destroy objectives with it. That would be nice. I mean, destroying fabricators is cool, but it'd be nice to get a demo force up to 30, very similar to the Commando, because the Commando has a good demo force. It can destroy things pretty well, but it's not quite a one-shot thing like the EATs. And then also it could use just a bump up in damage overall, maybe to its durable damage, so it's doing a little bit more damage to some of the elite units like the flesh mobs, like the bile titans, things like that, because it would be nice to at least not have to go through a full magazine to kill some of these targets, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, I could just be running an EAT or recoilless or something like that to be able to kill these things in one shot. Instead, I'm using the Epoch to have to shoot it multiple times. So that's something I would like there. Once they do the changes to the sway and the aiming, I imagine it'll be a little bit better. But this weapon definitely needs some love. But I'm not gonna sit here and say it's absolutely terrible, but it's not that great either. It's not a Warbond seller in my opinion. So overall, I'm gonna give it a B tier. All right, so the LAS-98 Laser Sentry. So the stat breakdown for this is it deals 350 damage at AP4. The durable damage is 200. It has a fire damage over time effect when you do shoot enemies for a while with it. It has a cooldown of 128 seconds prior to all the ship upgrades. And if you have all the ship upgrades, it's gonna have a cooldown of 109 seconds. So that's something to keep in mind there. I'm not gonna waste a lot of your time talking about this thing because I'm just gonna be upfront with you. This thing is not very good in its current state for a wide variety of reasons. So when you're thinking about this thing, basically think of a laser cannon that is a Sentry. So it has a larger heat sink. It's gonna have the same exact stat properties as the laser cannon. Is going to be able to do the same amount of DPS with the fire damage over time and overall. So it has tons of potential because prolonged shooting sets things on fire, kills them quickly. It will be able to hit those weak spots and things like that if it gets a good shot on them. So overall, it can operate like a laser cannon, but it doesn't function because of the AI like a laser cannon, which is the point of emphasis here. So clearly the AI is busted for this thing. It does not target prioritize well at all. It's constantly switching targets at times. It doesn't stop shooting. Enemies get too close to it. It seems to like forget about those enemies that are really close to it. It starts focusing on other targets that are away from it. There's been plenty of times where a Hulk is charging it, and rather than focus firing the Hulk down, it will start shooting something else to the left the moment it gets too close, or the right or something like that. To piggyback off that, this does not do well against enemies that swarm, aka the bugs and the Illuminates, because what's going to happen is that it's going to blow up after it shoots too long. So if you think about, instead of the laser cannon, how we shoot off the heatsink, you can replace it. With this, it doesn't have a way to replace it. It just blows up. And the bugs and things are swarming so much that this thing will just keep shooting forever, and it will blow up either by them running it over, or it will just blow up from the fact that it's just shot too much. So that's something to keep in mind there that is quite annoying. Now, if you can build around this the right way, meaning that you have other sentries to help it, or maybe you're helping it yourself, it has good damage potential because, again, the laser cannon is quite good. But on its own, as one of your primary damage dealers, this thing is going to be very underwhelming, and you're going to be losing it quite often very quickly after it comes in. So my final thoughts to this thing are, there are some tweaks that they can do very similar to the Flame Sentry to make this a little bit better. Obviously, the AI needs a complete overhaul. They need to fix it to where it prioritizes targets better. Maybe it starts with bigger targets and works its way around. I don't know, but that definitely needs to change. I wish it would focus fire at the weak points, because sometimes it gets stuck on enemies that have plating, like tanks or things like that. It will just keep shooting and wasting its ammo, which is quite annoying. And then overall, I really do think that the heatsink needs to be greatly increased, or something needs to change about it. Maybe it overheats and cools down, or maybe it operates like the double-edged sickle, where it will overheat, and as it overheats, it will actually do more damage and have higher penetration. That would be pretty cool. So I don't know what they need to do with this thing, but they definitely need to enhance it and make it a little bit better, because AI sucks right now. It burns itself out way too quickly, and I think a couple of tweaks to those things will actually make it a little bit better. So in its current state, I'm definitely going to have to give it a D tier. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about my second favorite thing in the Warbond, and that is going to be the G31 Arc. So basically, this is the Arc grenade. So stat breakdown for this grenade is that it deals 100 damage at AP4, which is a bit misleading, but some of the hidden stats about it are: has 70 durable damage, the stagger force is 35, the demo force is 20, and the stun strength is 8, meaning that it can stun most targets like Hulks, Chargers, and things of that nature. So that's actually quite powerful. The explosion radius deals a arcing effect at AP6, very similar to things like the de-escalator and things like that. It will deal out arc shots that will actually do more damage and have more penetration. This goes up to 10 meters in distance. And the thing about this grenade that makes it quite useful is that instead of it just doing it once, it will bounce 5 total times before it actually expires. So it will have 5 total chances to deal arcing damage, which makes it quite powerful because it's stunning, it's causing arc damage, and in general, it is overall very, very powerful in terms of its overall damage. Just to highlight it a little bit more, this grenade can not only stun Chargers and Hulks, but it can kill Chargers and Hulks very easily. It can also kill Factory Striders. I was quite shocked when I threw this underneath the Factory Strider just to test it, and it killed it. I was like, wow, this thing is actually really powerful there. It's not great against Bile Titans or things like that, but it will absolutely delete flesh mobs. It will do work against Volus and Overseers, and it will do work against the Harvesters. Overall, this grenade can pretty much kill anything in the game outside of a Bile Titan consistently, which is really powerful. I like to use this very similar to the Pyro Grenade, because the Pyro Grenade, you kind of want to spam a few out there just to get some multiple things going on, and will do a lot of damage to the enemies in that vicinity. Treat this the same. Basically, you throw this in like 2 or 3 of them at a time, and they're gonna be bouncing around all over the place in breaches or with enemy dropships or just even in contested areas in the city or whatnot, and it's gonna do a lot of damage to those enemies. I like throwing them in the Harvester shields, like a couple of these, and will absolutely destroy those Harvesters very easily. The one knock of the grenade is that the demo force is just shy of being able to destroy bug holes and fabricators. You need a demo force of 30, and this one is at 20, so that's one thing to keep in mind there. You'll need to bring some other alternative things to destroy those. To give you my final thoughts on the grenade, again, this grenade is an absolute beast. It can destroy any enemy in the game, given you place the things well and it bounces in your direction, because it does have a little bit of a chaotic bounce to it, but that's kind of the best thing about the grenade, is that it goes in different directions, which is nice. And again, I just love throwing a few of these out there, letting them do their thing and letting them just deal with the enemies, or throwing it at my feet and warping away or something like that. That's something to use as well. So overall, this grenade is an absolute A tier. It is a very solid grenade in the game. Last but not least, we have the armor passive, which is the Adreno-Defibrillator. So this basically zaps you back to life, giving you didn't lose a limb. Health will keep draining forever. It also has the effects of increased stim duration by 2 seconds, and you do get 50% resistance to arc damage. So the most interesting thing about this armor passive is, of course, the fact that you get resuscitated when you die. Now, if you lose an arm or you get exploded or something like that, you will not resuscitate. But if you die of normal means, you will resuscitate. Your screen will go black and white. You'll have muffled hearing, and you can't sprint. So that's some things to keep in mind, but you can go out in a blaze of glory, throw some stratagems at your feet or whatever you want to do, just finish it off. A couple of things to note here is that you can see in the footage that I'm continuing to stim and I'm able to stay alive. As long as you have stims, you can stay alive a little bit longer. And then also another thing to note is that if you die at extract, you can actually resuscitate, get on the Pelican, and extract with a survive. So that's actually pretty cool as well if you want to get that survive for that mission. But as a subjective aside about this thing, it looks really cinematic when you're in the black and white mode. I kind of wish they had a black and white mode for the game in general, like a tint you could do. That'd be pretty cool, but overall it does look very cinematic. But to give you my final thoughts on it, it's pretty gimmicky again. It's not gonna be great. It's got its situations where it could be cool, maybe on a eradicate mission or something like that. If you want to have a last stand or make it onto the ship, cool. The stim effect is nice of the 2-second duration. That's always going to be good on any armor. We love that on the Medkit armor. The 50% resistance to arc damage is always nice, so that's actually a pretty good quality of life thing. So if you just want to run this armor because you want to have epic last stand moments or something, or if you just like the bonus effects it has, cool. But in general, there's some better armors that do some better things in my opinion with these particular stats as well. So I'm gonna give it a C tier just for the fact it does have some cool factor, but that's about it. I'm gonna keep my recommendation very short and sweet here. This is a very, very, very good Warbond, not only because of the fact that the things are powerful, but they're very unique and cool. They have very different ways to use them. The variable is very cool just for the fact that you can switch all the modes. The warp pack is obviously S tier because of the mobility you get, the way you can play the game differently. It completely transforms certain loadouts. You can do completely different things in terms of mobility, from dodging attacks, getting in and out of things, or whatever. It's an elite stratagem in the game right now. And then everything else is really good. I love the arc grenade. The Epoch has potential. In general, again, the Warbond itself is pretty good. I cannot recommend it over something like Democratic Detonation, Chemical Agents if you haven't bought any Warbonds yet, but if you have bought some other Warbonds like those, I would say this is definitely worthwhile getting. It's one of the top 5 Warbonds right now you can buy because of the overall things you get with it. So, but all right, that's everything that I've found using these items so far. Obviously there's going to be more things that I find. Obviously there's things that you have found, so definitely let me know down in the comments below what you've been finding while using all these items. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this video down in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content similar to this. But anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.